What if I told you that the world once stood on the precipice of nuclear annihilation over events unfolding in a small Caribbean island nation? Yes, it's true, the year was 1962, and the world was caught in the icy grip of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union, two superpowers with ideologies as different as night and day, were locked in a tense standoff. In the background, the memory of the failed Bay of Pigs invasion was still fresh, a bitter reminder of the souring relations between the USA and Cuba. Suddenly, American U-2 spy planes flying high above the clouds discovered something that sent chills down the spine of the free world Soviet missile bases under construction on Cuban soil. This discovery propelled the world to the brink of an unthinkable catastrophe, a nuclear war that could wipe out humanity. And thus, the stage was set for a confrontation that would test the mettle of leaders and the resolve of nations. Over the course of 13 nerve-wracking days, the world held its breath as leaders navigated a maze of diplomatic and military challenges. In the early hours of October 22, 1962, President John F. Kennedy addressed the nation. The stark message was clear. The Soviet Union had installed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles off American shores. The world was on the precipice of a nuclear war, and the countdown had begun. In response to this unprecedented threat, Kennedy announced the establishment of a naval blockade around Cuba, a move designed to prevent further missile deliveries from the Soviet Union. This blockade, or quarantine, as it was officially termed, was a stern message to the Soviets, a clear line drawn in the sand. But behind the scenes, the gears of diplomacy were grinding away. Unseen by the public eye, frantic negotiations were taking place. Backdoor channels were opened, secret messages exchanged, negotiations were as tense as they were delicate, every word, every gesture carrying the weight of potential nuclear war. As the days progressed, the world watched, waited, and worried. The stakes were high, the tension palpable, the clock was ticking, and each passing moment brought the world closer to the brink of destruction. But on the 13th day, something changed. A letter arrived from Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev to President Kennedy. In it, Khrushchev proposed a deal. The Soviets would dismantle their missile bases in Cuba if the Americans pledged not to invade the island nation. Kennedy, recognizing the opportunity to pull the world back from the brink, agreed. The crisis was over, the missiles were dismantled, the blockade lifted, and the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. But the Cuban Missile Crisis was a chilling reminder of the destructive power of nuclear weapons and the fragile balance of world politics. It underscored the critical role of diplomacy in averting disaster, demonstrating that even in the face of the most dire threats, negotiation and dialogue can prevail. In a world teetering on the edge, it was diplomacy, not firepower, that carried the day. The Cuban Missile Crisis left an indelible mark on the world, reshaping international relations and the global power dynamics. In the immediate aftermath, the crisis led to the removal of missiles not only from Cuba, but also from Turkey, as part of a secret agreement between the United States and the Soviet Union. This critical moment in history also sparked the establishment of a direct communication line between the two superpowers, known as the Hotline, to prevent such a crisis from recurring. The Cuban Missile Crisis taught us significant lessons. It underscored the importance of diplomacy over aggression, as the crisis was ultimately resolved not on the battlefield but at the negotiation table. It highlighted the danger of nuclear proliferation, a threat that continues to loom over us. And it emphasized the need for effective crisis management, requiring cool heads and calculated decision-making. The Cuban Missile Crisis serves as a stark reminder of the thin line between peace and global catastrophe, a lesson as relevant today as it was in 1962.